Hey guys. So today we're going to be talking about a question I get a lot, and that is which utility slot to use on the Liberator. The question usually comes down to either fire suppression or afterburners, but I'll also at least touch on the other two options. We're going to start out with the most useless ability, which is ejection system. What it does is allow you to jump out of your Liberator without taking any fall damage, and it also allows you to waste 500 cert points. Don't buy it. Don't use it, and honestly, I'd advise avoiding eye contact with it as much as possible. Moving on, we've got Decoy flares. For general purposes, I would really classify these as only slightly more useful than ejection system, though they do have the occasional use. If you're running with a Zephyr Bulldog Lib purely to kill ground targets, it might be an alright choice, but with only granting 5 seconds of immunity from locks, and the fact that lock-ons really don't do much damage to Liberators anyway, the usefulness of flares is extremely limited, and it very rarely outweighs the fact that you're giving up either fire suppression or afterburners to use them. It's also a fairly expensive cert tree, and just not really useful unless you've got a lot of certs to spend and you primarily use the Liberator. So really that's the final judgment on it. If you've got tons of certs laying around, you can go ahead and start putting some points into it, because you might be able to use it, I don't know, once a month or so. But if you're a newer pilot without certs to spare, there's a lot of things that your certs would be much better spent on, so you should go ahead and just act like flares don't even exist for now. However, with those two out of the way, now we're on to the interesting choice, and that is looking at afterburners or fire suppression. These two options are fairly well balanced, and what you choose here is going to really depend on what type of pilot you are and your experience in the Liberator. So first of all, let's talk about fire suppression. This is definitely the cheaper option. It will only cost you 830 certs to max, and it will only cost 330 to get to rank 3, which is where I would start to consider it operating at decent effectiveness. At the final rank, fire suppression will give you back 12% health over the course of 5 seconds, and it will also put out the fire if your Liberator is on fire. It can be activated every 45 seconds at maximum rank, and can be used regardless of whether your Liberator is actually on fire or not. This health boost is fairly helpful, and in some longer fights you might actually be able to activate it more than once, giving you an overall extra 24% health over the course of the fight, which is a huge boost and will definitely help you survive. Between the cheaper cost and the fact that extra health is always a good thing, my basic recommendation would be for newer pilots to favor fire suppression, as it will give them a bit more survivability and bail them out of some poor decisions they're likely to make. The next option is afterburners, and these are a bit harder to break down and quantify. First of all though, they are incredibly expensive, and maxing them out will cost you a whopping 2,925 certs, which is really a huge investment for a new pilot or any new player. Now luckily, you don't need to max them out, but I don't really like using them before rank 3, which is still a pretty hefty investment of 1,175 certs. A full afterburner boost lasts about 2 seconds across all ranks, and the only difference from ranking it up is fuel regeneration, which gets boosted by 12.5% at each rank. What afterburners do give you is a strong forward boost of momentum, much like the afterburners on ESFs, and its uses are really only limited by your skill and ingenuity. The downside of running afterburners over fire suppression is the fact that you don't really gain anything tangible like extra health, and what you do get out of them is largely dependent on you as the pilot. Now, who should use fire suppression and how should you use them? As a general rule, I would recommend that newer pilots use fire suppression, pilots without many certs or pilots that regularly have air support with them. For newer pilots, fire suppression gives them a bit of a cushion to absorb mistakes that they make and they take a little bit too much damage. If you're flying with an air group, it gives you a little more staying power and will allow you to be more meaningful in a larger air or ground fight, since you're less likely to have to fall back to repair or let nanites kick in. Fire suppression is also a great choice for anyone who is running vehicle stealth or composite armor, since it will give you a way to regenerate health while still flying around. However, if you've already used fire suppression and your Liberator is still below 75% health and you don't have auto repair on, I would definitely advise landing to repair over waiting for fire suppression to recharge twice more. While running fire suppression, I would advise using it anytime you drop below 80% health and you expect to keep taking damage. If you're at 80% and you kill whatever is damaging you, there's really no point using it since nanites will kick in rapidly and get you back to full health anyways. But if you're still taking damage, use it as soon as possible. The reason for this is that you get the same health boost whether you're at 80% health or on fire, and the sooner you use it, the more likely it will be recharged before the end of the fight so that you could use it again if need be. If you're not running auto repair in your defensive slot though, pop the fire suppression as soon as you drop below 80% health no matter what, since you won't have auto repair to get you back to health, even if you kill what's damaging you. On the flip side, who should be using afterburners and how should they be using it? In my opinion, you won't really get full effectiveness out of afterburners until you're a fairly competent pilot and you can understand when and how to use them. With how expensive they are, they're definitely more of an enthusiast choice, and if you don't pull Liberators very often, it's probably not worth the investment. However, if you're a regular pilot and you're looking for a way to bump up what you can do in a Liberator, afterburners may be exactly what you've been looking for. They're especially helpful as well when you fly either alone or with maybe one other wingman, since you'll likely be moving around a lot more and relying on the element of surprise to get the kill. Afterburners are helpful for both getting into and out of situations. For someone like me who is a fairly aggressive pilot, I like to use afterburners to rapidly close on a target to get a quick kill. No matter the weapon, Liberators are more effective at close range, so being able to quickly close on a target is often vital to winning the fight. Afterburners are especially helpful against those ESFs that don't want to stay in play, but want to just keep flying back and shooting you from range. Just keep charging them down, and every time they turn around you'll be right behind them, and a lot of the time they'll either turn around and run back to Warp Gate or try to fight at close range where you can usually take them out. On the more defensive side of things, afterburners can help you get out of sticky situations quicker. If you're getting hit by ground fire, they'll help you either rapidly break line of sight or gain altitude, and if you're getting attacked by another Liberator, they can help you quickly gain distance to escape, or quickly maneuver at close range to dodge Tank Buster or Dalton round. Afterburners can also be helpful for pulling out of dives or correcting yourself if you spin out. Since they always thrust you directly forward, they're a good way to get your Liberator to stop spinning or rapidly gain altitude if you're about to crash. In essence, when deciding between fire suppression and afterburners, you have to ask yourself two questions. The first is whether you can afford to spend certs on afterburners, and that's a fairly easy question to answer. The second one is a little more complex. You can easily quantify what fire suppression can do for you. It gives you an extra 12% health every 45 seconds, and you can easily see when it saves your life. Afterburners, though, won't do that. Now, there are definitely times where afterburners has saved my life. I use them quite often to dodge a Tank Buster volley that would have done massive damage, or to close quickly on a Liberator to kill them before their gunner could land a shot, and that's what you have to ask yourself. Will I be able to use afterburners in a way that either allows me to avoid more damage than fire suppression would have healed, or would I be able to kill something faster so that they won't even have time to damage me? There's not really any right or wrong answer to this, and it's all going to come down to how you fly. Personally, while both options are extremely good, I mostly run afterburners anymore because I've become used to the extra maneuverability, and I feel very sluggish without it. It's also helpful that a lot more Liberators are running fire suppression now, which gives me a fairly large advantage when fighting them, since I can rapidly close or increase the distance. For fighting ESFs, afterburners is a little bit less advantageous. Even with it, ESFs will still be overall faster and more maneuverable, and it will really only help if you're running from them or closing on them. That being said, if it's a good ESF pilot, the extra 12% health from fire suppression probably won't save you either. So, I would just advise, play around with afterburners in the VR room, maybe see if a friend in-game has them maxed out and can pull a Liberator for you to use with them on it, and just go with what feels right to you. There's really no right or wrong answer between the two, and it's just going to come down to what you feel makes you a more effective pilot. Anyways, hopefully this video is helpful, and I will be going over defensive slots and airframes in 2 later videos. Until next time, thanks for watching.
Killing spree! Double kill!
On an enemy sunroof. Enemy
Repeat customer.
Did you boop a couple?